Bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Welcome, Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Today's Thursday, October 22nd, a day after Back to the Future Day. And the Cubs are out. Yes, it would have been cool, I know. We've got 295 days into the new year, 70 days left. We are live from the City of Angel Studios right here in downtown Burbank, California. COA Vapor, makers of the Fade to Black e-juice. It is called Fader Loops. Just go to the COA banner right now at jimmychurchradio.com. You can use the promo code JimmyLive. That's Jimmy, L-I-V-E, for the Fader Not Special. That's 25% off your order. Good stuff. Everybody's vaping. I'd like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States, hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the Planet. I'm your oh so humble host, Jimmy Church, and tonight is Thursday. That means it's Fader Night. That's right. Open lines all night long. The call-in number is 323-825-5045. 323-825-5045. You can also Skype in Fade to Black and the number 14. Now, for all of the new listeners tuning in tonight, this is a live 3-hour broadcast. Tonight is the night where we open up the lines and we talk to you. It is your show. Except tonight, we're going to do something a little bit different, kind of like what we did a couple of weeks ago when I just couldn't help myself and I needed to vent. Well, tonight I'm going to vent again. And the venting tonight is going to be on the Dragonfly Drones. That's right. The Dragonfly Drones. Now, for your enjoyment and your reference, at jimmychurchradio.com, scroll down to where you see Fader Night, and you will see a button there, and it says the Drone Gallery. Go and click on it. There's about 20, 25, 28, maybe even 30 images there for you to look at. It covers just about everything. A couple of images didn't get in, but we'll make sure that you see those on Twitter tonight. If you want to see, there's just a couple of images that didn't make it in. But if you want to see those, just follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox. Come hang out with us. It is in real time. If you have any questions or comments tonight during the show in real time, use the hashtag F2BQ. That's Fade to Black Questions. That is live to my left, and I will see those in real time during the show. Okay? Now, I will have a very, very, very esteemed special guest coming in at the top of the hour. Let's see. Do I disclose it now? You know what? I'm going to wait. But this is a Dragonfly Drones show. So the guest that I have coming in at 8 o'clock has been there since the beginning, And that's all I'm going to say right now. Okay, all right. It's going to be cool. I got a little suspense, a little surprise. Okay? Now, also, it was brought to my attention over the last, I'm going to say about a week, and I was watching a trend that has been going on in our little paranormal circle. You can call it disclosure, you can call it ufology, you can call it paranormal, you can call it, the Illuminati investigators, whatever, lost civilizations, that entire crowd. And there's really been a trend lately with the trolls. And not only trolls, but just observers in general, to attack the person instead of discussing or debating the subject. And it was brought to my attention, and I just kind of noticed what was going on, and I just find that interesting. In anything else out there, it doesn't matter what you're talking about. If you're talking about cars or sports or food or, chefs, newscasters, comedians, whatever the subject could be, airplanes, it doesn't matter. Whatever the subject is, to show a weakness in the argument or the debate, or to show the lack of intelligence or the lack of the ability to respond with fact, you can't stay on subject, so you attack the person. And this trend is out there. It's like across the board. And in society right now, it's really funny. If somebody is so strong in their position and you can't go further with it, then the best thing for you to do at that point, and you want to show that you're intelligent, is admit that the argument is strong. That's all you have to do. Don't divert off of that and then attack the person. That it shows everybody else that you don't have bullets in your gun and you can't come back. That's all it shows. It doesn't show, oh man, that was strong, man. You went straight. You know what? No. And I have noticed it. I see it in it's not only going on in the UFO circles, but it's like going on in politics, and it's going on in debates about world events or the economy. It's just like bizarre to me, this bizarro way of instead of talking about the subject and debating that and moving forward and getting resolve and maybe learning something, you just go, screw it, man. I'm just going to attack the person. It's a weird trend, isn't it? Well, not on this show. It ain't going to happen. And if there's anybody that wants to attack a guest, a caller, an audience member, or somebody part of the staff here, that's it. You get drop kicked. You're booted out of the circle. Go somewhere else. Take that action somewhere else, because I just don't dig it. If I was running the social media for a mass media outlet or a celebrity, and that kind of stuff just started happening, I mean, I'm that's it. Block, done, delete, drop kick, and you're out. Instead of being inside of the circle and talking about the points that are going on. And it goes to, if you think about it, I was even seeing it, about Lamar. What talk about his drug problem. Don't talk about the man. Whatever. It goes on. It's like this trend in social media right now. It's a bizarre thing. Well, you know what? I'm gonna stand my ground on this. We're in a too much of a treacherous world right now, and that's it. I will defend my own. All right, there you go. Okay, I just wanted to get that out. It's Friday night, or it's Thursday night. It's Fader night. It's Friday night, Thursday night. It's Thursday night. It's Fader night. Open lines all night long. Tonight we're going to be talking about the Dragonfly drones. And this subject is something that has been hotly debated on both sides since 2007. since it first surfaced. We're going to talk about the history. We're going to talk about all of the players. We're going to talk about the photographs. We're going to talk about the evidence, the witnesses, the websites, the researchers. We're going to talk about everything tonight. It's all going to be out there. And I definitely want to know what you think. I'll never forget the first time I clicked on Chad's picture. I will not forget that. And it changed me. And you can go right now on the net, and there is still alive are literally thousands of pages of tens of thousands of posts in forums debating this on both sides. There's a lot of evidence out there and a lot of stuff still to this day. A lot like the Teeter story and saga. The Dragonfly drones continue. And we've got current news on them as well. All right, so with that, let's get the show cracking. Let's go. It is Fader Night. Open lines, 323-825-5045. You can email Jimmy at jimmychurchradio.com. Follow us on Twitter at jchurchradio. That's all of the easy stuff. Let's get the show cracking. Don't forget about the Skyfire Summit. That is Travis Walton's shindig out in Heber, Arizona. Go to skyfiresummit.com. Alien Snowfest. Go to aliensnowfest.com. You can do that right there at jimmychurchradio.com. Click, go. The early bird special, $179, is alive and well. Go and do it. And then we have the Conscious Life Expo, February 19th through the 22nd. All of this information will be up at jimmychurchradio.com on the future events page, and we'll get that updated over the weekend. If you want to write for us, write for Fade to Blog, send an email to Rita at jimmychurchradio.com. We'll get you going through the processes to get that done, and come and write for us. All right, let's get the show cracking. Today, Christopher Lloyd, oddly enough, is 77. His birth date is October 22nd. Strange. The day after Back to the Future Day, I thought. Christopher Lloyd, happy birthday. Jeff Goldblum is 63 today. Bob Odenkirk is 53. One of the funniest guys out there, period. Love Bob. He was great in Let's Go to Prison, The Brothers Solomon. I think he directed that, too, as well. Breaking Bad. Fargo, the series, he was great in that too as well. Our dead guy's birthday today is Annette Funicello, 1942 to 2013, died at the age of 70. She was discovered by Walt Disney at the age of 12, and she became part of the cast of the original Mickey Mouse Club. And she went from that to a surfer babe in films such as Muscle Beach Party, Bikini Beach, Pajama Party, Beach Blanket Bingo, and How to Stuff a Wild Bikini. In early 1987, she began to suffer from dizzy spells, but she kept her failing health from her friends and family. Then in 1992, she announced that she was suffering from multiple sclerosis. On April 8th, 2013, Funicello died at Mercy Southwest Hospital right here in Bakersfield, California, at the age of 70 from complications due to MS. Happy birthday, Annette. Don't forget, the word of the month is spoon. Soon to be cheese. This is Fade to Black. It is Fader Night. It's Thursday, 323-825-5045. We're going to be talking about the Dragonfly drones all night long, taking your calls. What did you think? What do you think now? What did you think then about the Dragonfly drones? This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. It's Fader Night, and I'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
What's up, revolutionaries? It's me, Jimmy Church. Do you have an IRS or state tax issue? Well, I did, and I called national tax experts. My problems were fixed, done, fini, and man, I gotta tell you, it was a relief. National tax experts are a recognized tax office that services clients in all 50 states. It doesn't matter where you live. Give them a call. I'm telling you, they take the time to understand each and every client's individual financial status as well as their financial goals. And that's exactly what you need, my brother, when you're taking on the evil three-letter. So, seriously, give them a call today at 1-877-909-5444. Again, 1-877-909-5444. Or go check out their website, www.nattaxexperts.com. That's NATTAXEXPERTS.com. Tell them Jimmy sent you.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the planet.
Hi, this is Chase Kletsky with Fate Magazine Radio, and you're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station, where the Fade or Nots rock.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. Tonight's Fader Night. Best night of the week. 323-825-5045. Open lines all night long. Just listening to that commercial, Chase Kletsky. Want to remind everybody that this Sunday night, I'll be hosting Coast to Coast AM and sitting in for George Knapp. And my guests on Sunday night are Chase Kletsky and Ron Felber. Will be doing the Mojave incident for the masses, for real. So there you go. That'll be a Sunday night. Tune in. Okay, let's do this. On this day in history, in 1962, one of the big days in history, in a dramatic televised address to the American public, President John F. Kennedy announces that the Soviet Union has placed nuclear weapons in Cuba, and in response, the United States will establish a blockade around the island to prevent other offensive weapons from entering the Cuban state and setting off the brink of World War III. Could you imagine? Ooh, if that went down today, that's heavy drama. Fader fact: in the 16th century, Pope Leo X buried a skeleton of his pet elephant, Hanno, under the Vatican. And that is a Fader fact. Here's all the news that you know nothing about. Let's get as much of this in before we get to the bottom of the hour and crank this day going. Let's do it. The whistleblower organization known as WikiLeaks has published a second set of documents obtained from CIA Director John Brennan's AOL email account. AOL. The first set of documents that were published yesterday, spoke about on the show, contained reports on Afghanistan and torture and ideas for U.S. policy towards Iran. The new release contains Brennan's address book and a full version of executive summary of key findings and recommendations on Afghanistan and Pakistan, some pages of which were published yesterday by Anonymous. The 13-page executive summary details the Senate team's findings on the topics of security, reconstruction, nation building, and narcotics cultivation in Afghanistan with an AOL account. And we're upset about Hillary's personal server, right? And that as if that was bad enough. But we've got the CIA director with a personal AOL account with, oh man, somebody should really go to prison here. About 70 hostages facing imminent mass execution were rescued, and an American service member was killed in an operation against ISIS-controlled prison in northern Iraq, the Pentagon said today. The commando became the first American combat death in Iraq since November 2011 and the first killed by ISIS. Boots on the ground. Mexican authorities said today they seized about 10 tons of marijuana in an elaborate tunnel with a rail car system that extended well into San Diego and was designed to smuggle drugs into the U.S. from Tijuana. The discovery yesterday marks one of the longest and most sophisticated clandestine tunnels found on the U.S.-Mexico border. The passage, I know you're wondering, it was 9 feet deep and about 2,600 feet long. About 3/4 of that distance in Tijuana and the rest in San Diego. It was lit, ventilated, and built with metal beams to prevent collapse. You should see the video. It's crazy. And they don't even know if it was ever used. My guess, as big as it is, it was used a lot. A hard drive with research on atrocities in El Salvador, relevant to a recent lawsuit against the CIA, was stolen from a University of Washington office while the agency's director was visiting the campus. Yeah. Coincidence? I think not. Police are investigating the quote-unquote suspicious theft. The office of Dr. Angelina Godoy, director of the University of Washington Center for Human Rights, was burglarized at some point between Thursday and Saturday last week. After searching the office, the unknown thief made off with the desktop computer containing the hard drive with 90% of the research on human rights violations in El Salvador during the 1980s. The center recently filed a lawsuit against the CIA, trying to obtain agency records about a colonel in the Salvadorian army who is suspected of leading massacres of civilians during the 1979-1992 Salvadoran Civil War. This colonel was trained by the United States, went to the University of the Americas. And, the CIA is visiting the campus. They get a break-in, stealing the hard drive containing the evidence against the case against the CIA. There are no coincidences. Russia has almost finished building a new jumbo Arctic military base on Kotelny Island, just off the eastern Siberian coast. There was no such base there in Soviet times, Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu has recently said today. The new base has become the new home for the 99th Arctic Tactical Group, the Navy's permanent unit serving at the barely livable island. I've seen the pictures. There's nothing there. Much of which it's flat, it's rocks, it's pebbles, and permafrost. Last year, a fleet of warships and support ships delivered the troops and their military hardware, including brand new armored vehicles. I don't know what they would need those for up there. I mean, really up there. And constructed, among other things, a landing strip for supplies to be airlifted rather than airdropped. Now, this island, picture Russia, the top of Russia, the northern part of Siberia, right there, I mean, way north. And They built this huge base there. Why? I think it's torture for the you are going to Kelney Island. No, that's what it was built for. Boston University researchers discovered multiple vulnerabilities in the network time protocol. That is called the NTP, one of the oldest and most important standards on the internet. It was introduced 30 years ago. NTP ensures that times are synchronized across networks. Think about this. Everything has got to be lockstep. It's a key component of business transactions, encryptions, even logging in and out of websites. All the times need to be the same. Attacks over the protocol could throw off things like industrial computers that need to coordinate systems, including air traffic control, financial transactions from being properly recorded, or sidestep commonly used forms of internet security. They need to lock that one down. Outdoorsman Goran Olsen in Norway recently stumbled across a 1,200-year-old Viking sword while walking on a trail on an ancient route. The find, which dates from approximately 750 AD and is in exceptionally good condition, the pictures are incredible. It was announced by the Hordaland County Council. Oh, whoa, that came out of nowhere. See, I still have my cold. The rusted weapon was lying under some rocks on a well-known path across a high mountain plateau which runs between western and eastern Norway. That's all the news that you know nothing about. This is Fade to Black. Today is Thursday. It is Fader night. Tonight, the Dragonfly Drones. All night long. Call a number, 323-825-5045. Do you know about the Dragonfly Drones? Have you researched the Dragonfly Drones? Have you seen pictures of the Dragonfly Drones? Go to jimmychurchradio.com right now. Scroll down on the homepage, and there's a button that says Drone Gallery. Go take a peek. I'll be back right after this.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Today, everybody, the Fadernauts and planet Earth is vaping, and I'm very proud to announce our very own e-juice. When we were approached by City of Angels Vapor about Fade to Black e-juice, I wanted to make sure that it was the very best, and that the flavors were something that I could create myself, and we did just that. Introducing Fade to Black Fader Loops. This will take you right back to Saturday morning cartoons and your favorite bowl of fruity, loopy cereal. Just click on the banner or go to www.coavapor.com. Enter the promo code JimmyLive. That's Jimmy, L-I-V-E, for the Fadernaut special. The website, coavapor.com. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station.
Imagine no longer being tied down to your computer, but having the freedom to take live talk radio with you anywhere you go. TalkStream Live introduces our first ever iPhone application. The talk shows you follow now follow you. And your iPhone is now the fastest and easiest way to stay connected to the best talk radio on the internet. Let TalkStream Live transform the way you listen to radio. Listen to live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Mobile talk radio from TalkStream Live. Now available in the iTunes App Store.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And this is Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers. We are of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
All right, you Fadernauts. Studio Dome has done it once again. A new Studio Dome Fadernaut special. Introducing the Studio Dome Boom Box Bluetooth speaker. It's got a rear-firing bass film subwoofer and dual 52mm main speakers. You'll never listen to your tablet or cell phone speakers again. Just click on the Studio Dome banner, use the promo code Jimmy, and you'll get the SBB for $49 and free shipping. And get a Buddy 4-port USB charger for free. That's a $19.99 value right there. And they'll throw in a Buddy in the box. It's the best deal on the net anywhere. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner, enter the promo code Jimmy. Go Beckley Teppy.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. Less's Burn Juice. That's what I'm talking about. This is Fader Night. It's Thursday night. And I'm not going to open up the phone lines just yet. Let me set the tone, and then we'll bust it wide open. All right? The Dragonfly Drones. Before I get started, much of the information tonight that I will be referring to comes from a massive amount of research that I have done, not only over years, but certainly over the last month. Truthfall.com, DroneHoax.com, Mark D'Antonio, Michael Sala, Coast to Coast AM, UFO Casebook, and multitudes of other websites. Okay, and blogs and reading and gathering information. Okay, now the Dragonfly drones were a series of sightings that started back in May of 2007. Originally, there were 5 main sightings. We'll move on from that in just a second, but there were 5 main sightings. And the 5 that are referenced as the 5 originals, May 6, 2007, there was the Chad sightings in Bakersfield, California. That location was modified. We'll get to that in just a bit. May 12, 2007 was a MUFON submitter known as Wife, and that was in Lake Tahoe, Nevada. Then May 20th, 2007, Rajinder, known as Rajman, 1977, and that was in Capitola, California. More on that, too, as well. June 6th, 2007, was the Jenna L. and Stephen, I think that was husband-boyfriend, in Big Basin, California. And then June 16th, 2007, the famous Thai sightings in Big Basin, California. And calls are coming in already. Just hang on, caller. Stay right there. I'll grab you in just a second. And then we need to move back and forth on the timeline because later on, other research has brought out Linda Moulton Howe and Earth Files and her research. We have the Ted Connors sighting and interview. That was in June 25th, 2007. Then we have June 26th, a day later in 2007, Isaac, who was the employee at Packle Carrot, releases his documents and photographs and images. And then we back up, and later research had brought out a May 2006 sighting by a Mr. Smith in Birmingham, Alabama. And then before that, there was another sighting in Italy on July 1st, 1999. That drone sighting and images. And then 1981, as early as January 1981, Mary out of Phoenix, Arizona, with her image and interview and her connection to Isaac and MUFON and how that came out in 1992. Remember, the original releases were by Chad on Coast to Coast AM on the Coast to Coast AM website in May of 2007. So that sets the tone. And as we move on tonight, there's a couple of things that you need to understand. First off, PACL, P-A-C-L, is the Palo Alto Carrot Laboratory. CARET, C-A-R-E-T, is an acronym for the Commercial Applications Research for Extraterrestrial Technology. Okay? So when you hear me say PACL, that is the Palo Alto Carrot Laboratory. CARET is the acronym for the division at the laboratory, Commercial Applications Research for Extraterrestrial Technology. Okay, with that, let's go to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hey there, Jimmy. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. Who's calling? What's your name?
This is the captain speaking, sir.
Oh, hey, Captain. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. You know, you talk about the Dragonfly Drones. I want to tell the listening audience what this application is for. It is a military application, and people need to know that they are doing what is called dragonflies. They're doing houseflies. They're known as fruit flies. These are all type of applications. They look like insects, but they're not. Okay.
Okay.
They have them in various forms. They go from dragonflies to houseflies to cockroaches. They look like cockroaches, but they're not. They're robots, and people are going to get. They look very genuine, but they're not. They're robots, and what they do is they gather up information, and they have cameras on them, of course, and they can. These things are so minute. They can fly right into your house, and you think it's a house fly, and it's not. And it watches everything that you do.
Now, what I want you to do, Captain, and thank you for that, and you are right about the micro drones that are being developed, and some of them are really, really small and robotic. Yes, absolutely. The Dragonfly drones that we are discussing tonight, if you go to jimmychurchradio.com and go to the homepage, scroll down, and you will see under tonight's show for Fader Night, you'll see a little button there that says Drone Gallery. Go and click on the Drone Gallery and look at the images, and that'll take you through and familiarize yourself with the Dragonfly drone out of the Carrot Laboratories that we will be discussing tonight. It's absolutely amazing, Captain. Go check it out, and thank you for the call, brother.
Well, I sure appreciate it, Jimmy, and you keep up the good work, and I tell you, there's nothing like a Fader Night. Fading out.
Thank you so much, Captain. Have a good night.
All right, appreciate it, sir. Bye-bye now.
Yes, and what he's referring to, he's absolutely right. There are very, very, very small drones and robots being developed, not only by DARPA, but private enterprise, military, industrial complex that are extremely small with cameras. And he's right, too, man. He's absolutely right. Okay, back to the timeline, and that does open up the phone lines, 323-825-5045. It all started in May of 2007 with this post and a set of photographs into Coast to Coast AM. I'm going to start here, and then we will take off. But this is the original post. Last month, April 2007, my wife and I were on a walk when we noticed a very large, very strange craft in the sky. My wife took a picture with her cell phone camera, second photo. A few days later, a friend and neighbor lent me his camera and came with me to take photos of this craft. We found it and took a number of very clear photos. Picture number one is taken from right below this thing and I must give my friend credit as I was not brave enough to get close enough to take this picture myself. The craft, let me do this here. Hold on for a second. You got to love live radio. The craft is almost completely silent and moves smoothly. It usually moves slowly until it decides to take off. Then it moves very quickly and is out of sight in the blink of an eye. More than anything, I simply want to understand what this is and why it is here. We found your show with Google, and I have listened for a few nights now, and I have decided that if anyone can help me understand what this thing is, it is you and your audience. I must admit I am deeply unsettled by this thing, and I have never seen anything like this in my life. Location, I would prefer not to say for now. Chad. And that was the beginning of the Dragonfly Drone saga. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Lori Brooks.
Hey, Lori Brooks. How are you tonight?
I'm doing good. I got a question for you, Jimmy, about the drones.
Yeah, what's up?
Okay, well, my question is, okay, now that they have all of these drones and everybody's familiar with them now, everybody's seen them and they know what it's about, now you're having even, like you go to Planet Hollywood, you go to Vegas and you see them, they're bringing drinks down in a little tiny miniature drone in the pool. Are they desensitizing us to the drones so that we'll be more accepting so when they come, like we won't be so afraid? Like, what do you think about that?
Well, that's a very good point, and we were talking about that on the show this week, actually. Yeah, they are everywhere, and I don't understand the why everybody is all shook up about it, Lori, to be honest with you, because we've had radio-controlled planes and hobbyists out there forever, and all of a sudden now drones are a big deal, and I don't get it. So are they desensitizing us and getting us ready for what could be happening here in America later on? It's a possibility. I think it's a great question. Thank you for the call, Lori. Be safe. I saw your chicken today. I'll talk to you soon. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye, Lori. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hey, Jimmy, this is Brian.
Hey, Brian.
Hey, called you a couple of weeks ago, so I was calling from the 90.
Yes.
So more like Corona, California.
Yeah, right on. How are you, man?
Hey, about a half a year ago, I seen one of those Dragonfly drones.
Where'd you see
out
it?
There in, Highway 18, Lucerne Valley.
Oh, really?
Apple Valley.
Yeah.
And the craziest thing, it wasn't just a drone, like the donut-shaped object up in the air, but it was being masked by like two Black Hawk helicopters.
How big was it, Brian?
Oh, not good by eyeballing it, but I could say like maybe 2 full moon sizes, full moons.
Well, how
far
high? And how far away? How big was it compared to the helicopters?
Just about the same size as the fuselage, the body, minus the tail.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Interesting. Interesting. Was it during the day or at night?
It was at night, and you couldn't see nothing. And I'm kind of used to government military flyovers and all that. And they were flying in an oddball direction, kind of low to the ground.
Right.
And when they flew over, you couldn't see nothing below them. And so I'm all in the military, this and that. So I'm looking at the Black Hawks. Oh, look at that.
Yeah, right.
And now, out of the corner of my eye, I caught the drone passing by. And it must have been maybe no more than a couple hundred feet off the ground.
Wow.
But,
wow.
The drone was completely... The only thing that lit it up was the red lights off the Black Hawks.
Now, did it? What version of the Dragonfly was it? Was it Chad's version? Was it Ty's version? Or was it another version altogether?
It was Linda Moulton Howe's version, the one with the donut shape, some type of propulsion in the center.
Right.
Kind of hollow.
With the big fins sticking off of it?
That's the only trip. I didn't see those things.
But it was round.
I saw 3. Yeah, it was round. I forgot what you call the, technical name for a donut-shaped object.
Right. Well,
but,
you would call it a donut-shaped object, is what you would
call
it.
Yeah, I mean, that's all I could think of. It was round, and the lights of the Black Hawk was shining through the center, so you could see the bottom apron lit up, kind of, if you want to say it like that.
Wow. Hey, did you see the hair, the long spindly things coming off of the top of it?
Nah, it was kind of dark, but the only thing I saw were 3 protruding round coin-shaped objects, round, kind of outside the donut shape.
Yes.
So I couldn't even tell you what those were. And that's just my interpretation of it, but I definitely saw that donut shape, you know?
Wow, that's crazy. And so, Brian, Dragonfly drones are real, aren't they?
Yeah, I can't tell you who's flying them, but all I can say is 2 helicopters. 2 helicopters were masking its flyover. So what can you say about that?
Yeah, it's not big enough to put a person in. There's no area for that. Was there? I mean, it's a drone. It's a pilotless, intelligently controlled object.
Yeah, a Black Hawk is what, 3-4 crew, maybe 6-7 passengers.
Yeah,
but
sounds about right.
With that donut shape, you would have to curl up in a cannonball shape,
Yeah, excellent point. And thank you for that. Thank you. And
can I bring something up about triangles and all that?
Sure, go ahead.
Started listening to you when I saw a flyover just before everybody started announcing that J-Helm thing.
Right.
Same area, but opposite direction. I'm heading towards Edwards Air Force Base, that direction.
Right.
And out of the corner of my eye, here's I wouldn't say a plasma field, but the air got lit up by a wedge. Kind of like if you were underwater looking up at a boat cutting through making a wake.
Right.
You could see a wedge cutting through the air and like plasma waves coming off that. Maybe it's only 2 seconds long, but I could tell it was in control because it kind of went low, then a little bit higher to gain altitude, and then faded away.
And you know what's funny to me? You said you saw this near Edwards Air Force Base,
about the southeastern corner. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other one was the Antelope Valley off of the 18.
Yeah, same area.
Same area. Yeah.
Same Mojave area.
Yeah.
And the craziest thing is, I could tell you that it was government, the wedge, because I'm always in this area, doing the same routine.
Right.
And you could see what do they call those? The C-130s, the ones that fuel the planes.
Right.
They're doing the same flight path all the time. So whatever it was flying in the correct flight area of, Air Force, whatever's up there.
Well, and there's so much secret black projects going on. I mean, that whole area, Edwards Air Force Base, Palmdale, Lancaster, 18, Antelope Valley, Mojave Desert, that whole area is nothing but secret stuff. Yeah. You don't see anything normal. you know what I mean? You just don't. It's all black projects all the time.
I think there's a guy named Pat Machaca. He calls himself an aviation archaeologist.
Uh-huh.
And he wrote a book for aviation wrecks of San Bernardino County and all that.
Right.
And I tell you, that whole high desert and a lot of the housing's built on wrecked planes.
Yeah.
From
100%
B-1 bombers or something, like the old 1918 planes, double-seater, 4-engine things crashing in Cajon Pass, to one of those Valkyrie bombers from the what was that plane that crashed?
Oh,
the supersonic planes.
Yeah, the SR-71. That crashed.
No, beyond that, the ones that like the French plane, the one that crashed with the fireball.
Oh, yeah.
Supersonic.
Yes.
We had one that was called a Valkyrie. It crashed up here near Barstow.
Right. Well,
so this whole area is just lit up with stuff,
I think 2 SR-71s crashed near Barstow too, in between Barstow and Needles, in the high desert there off at, what is that? The Pear Blossom. What is that freeway that cuts across?
Pear Blossom Highway.
Yeah, and right there, there's an SR. I think there's 2 SR-71 crash sites up there that you can still go check out.
Not just that, but you had George Air Force Base, the one that the guy who broke the sonic barrier, or this. What's his
Chuck Yeager?
Chuck Yeager. He was the general for the base down there in San Bernardino City, whatever that was.
Absolutely.
Norco.
Yep. Absolutely.
And they had all these Phantom jets during the Vietnam War doing all this radar training or something. They all crashed up in these mountains. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, well, people need to understand that right here in Southern California, this area that we're talking about, and it's a large expanse. You have the China Lake facility out there, the naval weapons installation. You even have Richard Branson and Virgin Galactic is out there at that airport.
Voyager 1.
Voyager 1. You have Skunk Works, Lockheed. Everything is out there. All of the top secret stuff, all of the radar research that was done still continues to this day with stealth technology. It is all done right here in Southern California. So there's stuff flying around all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for the...
I saw...
Oh, go ahead, Brian. Real quick. I'm up against a break.
Yeah. The other week I saw a cube-shaped object. You know, like Star Trek, the Borg?
Yep.
I saw a cube flying through the air, but it had nav lights on it. So I'm not talking about someone from Mars or nothing, but a cube object with red and white. And I had to call that dude up from the UFO Center dude.
Oh, okay. Here in Southern California.
I had to call that guy up to report that one. That was just crazy. I don't know how a cube can fly in the air, but sure enough, right over Corona, I saw a cube.
You need to start taking pictures, Brian.
Hey, I'm just like you. You know, you get astonished, admire, you love it, and then they're gone.
Thank you so much for the phone call, brother. Be safe out there.
I'll talk to you later, bud.
You got it. There you go. Eyewitness to the Dragonfly drones. Now, continuing on with the saga, phone lines are open, 323-825-5045. The amount of, I almost want to use the word rhetoric that was going on both sides of the fence. Believers, non-believers, skeptics, debunkers, believers, witnesses, and so forth, going on out there. It got out of control. I want to say this before I hit to the top of the hour. The experts out there, and most of them I respect and I have relationships with. I get that and I understand their point of view, which is it's CGI. I looked at the pictures immediately and I knew, and they had their different reasons for it, shadowing and the way it was rendered and so forth. I understand that. I do. But the flip side is when I have an expert in CGI and animation and 3D rendering and modeling and different software programs, and they are experts in that, and they can replicate anything. Of course you can. And I get that. So you look at a picture like this and you go, I can do that. Well, you better. If you claim to have the reputation behind you and you can do anything and you see a picture like that, that's your job. And you can't just say, well, I can duplicate that, so therefore it's not real. That is like saying I give you a picture of a Corvette and you go, I can replicate that and do it exactly like that in that picture. So therefore it's not real. That's exactly what you're saying. CGI 3D modeling today, you can replicate anything, and it is real. I get that. I understand that. But just because you can duplicate or sort of or claim or do anything in these images and say that you can replicate it doesn't mean that the images aren't real. I'm not saying the images are real. I'm saying you saying that doesn't make them not real. I give you this Starbucks cup in my hand, right here in my hand, and you can replicate this in 3D and make it look real and drop it into a photograph. Does that make this Starbucks cup not real? I don't think so. So that argument does not hold water. Although I respect CGI and I know it is real and you can do whatever you want with it, I get that. But this case is much deeper than the photographs that are out there. And it is your job to be a 3D modeler, to do surfaces and textures and rendering and skies and clouds and shadows. I get that. So if you're looking at a picture like this and you can replicate it and you can replicate the object in it, it's what you're supposed to do. It doesn't make the object in the picture not real. Do you understand, my lovely, wonderful audience, my position on this? It aggravates me to have so many different experts come in and talk about software and rendering and that, and it can't be real because I can duplicate it. It's dumbfoundingly dumb to say stuff like that. And these are guys that I respect, and they should know better. So that we could go to any number of images that have been shot around the world, not only of Dragonfly, but of any UFO, unidentified object in the sky. And it's not real because you can duplicate it? You should be able to duplicate anything. I'd throw a Coke can in the air, take a picture of it, and show it to you. You're going to tell me it's not real because you can duplicate it? That's the point that I am trying to make. It's aggravating. Now, when you go and look at the images that we've posted, there's a vast amount of stuff there. There's some documentation from the Packle Carrot laboratories that Isaac released. There are images from Big Basin, California, from two different eyewitnesses, one on June 6th and one on June 16th. They are all labeled. You can get the dates off of it. Okay? There is, in all of these objects, and especially the Thai Big Basin photograph, is something I'm going to be talking about at length tonight. And that is the writing and the what appears to be hieroglyphics. There is something that is written on the drone. Isaac came out and said, and this is what you need to wrap your head around, that writing is not writing, but it is. It's a language, but it's not. It's more like a computer language. It's software coding. And that coding, written right with the right ink and written on the right material, activates itself. And that is the software itself. Now, if you look on the documentation that is there, and you look at the white pages, and you look at the images, and you look at the Thai Big Basin photograph, and a couple of other images, you will see those software interpretations on those aircraft, on the drones. More on that in a second. It is very intriguing, and it is one of the best parts about this case. When I come back, surprise guest. Oh, yeah. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Did you ever turn to your radio for your favorite talk show to find that it's been preempted for this?
In the air to deep right center. Back goes Lewis to the wall, and it's all here!
Or this?
And I'm ashamed of you and Hillary for voting for it.
Do you have a favorite talk radio program that's not available in your city? Just go to TalkStreamLive.com for links to the best streaming talk radio shows. At TalkStream Live, you will find live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All your favorites are here. With such a large selection, you will also discover some new favorites. On the go and still want to listen? With a mobile smartphone, simply type TalkStream Live on your internet browser. Now you can take internet radio with you. You will also find hundreds of music, news, and sports streams. Best of all, the TalkStream Live directory is free and there's never a login required. Remember TalkStreamLive.com, the fastest route between you and your favorite talk radio show.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back to Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight's Fader Nights. Now, I have promised for almost 2 years now a Dragonfly Drones evening. And here we are. We're in the middle of it. And one of the most important people that was at the center of all of this from the beginning was Linda Moulton Howe. When the original post appeared on Coast to Coast AM, Linda was part of that. Earth Files, the investigation ensued. She personally interviewed 17 witnesses. I believe the number is 17. But you know what? We'll get the answer straight from Linda Moulton Howe. Linda, how are you tonight?
Hi, Jimmy, and hello to all of your Fader nuts.
Thank you so much, Linda, for coming in tonight. And the Dragonfly drone, I'm going to use the word saga because it's going on, I don't know how many years now. And if we go back all the way to 1981 or even before, you know, we're looking at a large chunk of modern history has been around the Dragonfly drone scenario.
Well, I'm glad you are stressing that because that is one of the most important pieces to counter what had to be our government's efforts to muddy the waters using the web, counterintelligence efforts to throw out CGI and Photoshop not long after everything started. And I still can remember it was the first week in May. It was 2007. And Lex at Coast to Coast and me at earthfiles.com, we were both getting photos. And the first 7 people that I got, there were some in California, one in Birmingham, Alabama, another from Louisiana that's very important I'm going to tell you about here in a minute. And so in 1 week, I had a total of 9 people that were reporting, and some were sending images, and some were doing very good illustrations, and that by the time that a month passed, I had received 29 photographs myself at earthfiles.com with interviewing people who were coming out of the woodwork, and one man who requested, as so many people do, which drives journalists mad, but in this field, you almost have to do this. Grant anonymity if you're going to learn about material that has been classified and people have been threatened in their lives and losing their jobs. And this man got in touch with me first through an email, and then I talked with him extensively by phone. So it was not like he was just somebody on paper.
Right.
And his story in brief was, and this is so important because it anchors through somebody who had been in the military, who was a pilot, and who was seeing what I was reporting, seeing what Lex was reporting on Coast, and he gets in touch with me because he wants me to know this isn't just 2007. I saw this in 1987 at Barksdale Air Force Base, Louisiana. It was during an open house of an aviation air show. And he said it was on a still display, and how he saw this was he was with people who were going hangar to hangar. Some of the guys that he was with worked there at Barksdale Air Force Base, so he wasn't even questioning where they were going. And they ended up going around a bunch of people and through a hangar. It was one of those serendipity things. And now he sees on what would be like a movable dolly with wheels underneath, but sitting on top of it completely still, is what people had been sending in photographs. This is the long-tailed, circular, we'll call it a ring in the front, with maybe, I'd say, hundreds of wires. It could have been more than 1,000. Nobody's ever really counted them.
Right.
These wires that come up from the ring almost looks like mist or water in certain light. And it's sitting there, and he tried to ask, what in the world is this? And the guys that he was with, they didn't know. They'd never seen it before. He'd never seen it before. And suddenly, some people with guns and in the black clothes came to them, talked very roughly, said that they had no right to be in this private military personnel only hangar area. The military ushered them out of that hangar. But this guy talking to me said that he could remember the detail when he saw the photos, and that he was so puzzled, and his colleagues were puzzled about why were they so rough-handled. And that's really important often throughout the years, that military intel and counter-intel often play too roughly with people who really are innocent, and then that sets up a chain of suspicion. And why people remember these things, Jimmy, is he was rough-handled. He was staring at something he had never seen before. He has an aviation context, and those stick with people. Now, as we came up through the time, perhaps the most important of all were 12 photographs that were sent to me in an envelope with a letter from a man who had been with a bunch of bicyclers in what was called Big Basin, California. And they were, I think it was, they had come up a hill. And the first thing they all saw this thing like a dragonfly in the sky, and they could hear a slight electrostatic hum. And the guy who wrote the letter to me was Ty Brannigan. We've all tried to track him down over the years, have never been able to, but he sent me a very coherent typed letter with the 12 photographs saying, it took me 4 times to get these photos. He said, I became frustrated because whatever this was, it kept flickering in and out. It would come out of being invisible, it would be above them, and always was slowly rotating clockwise or counterclockwise above where they were. And each of the first 3 times they were also caught off guard. People would have their cameras stuffed in a bag or in their pocket, and that each time it was flickering in and out, and nobody got the photos. And he said he pulled his camera out, put it in his hand so it was stuck with at his handlebars, and he was hoping that there would be another time, and it came, and that's how he got those 12 photos. Here's another very important piece on this. When I got those 12 photos, I've known Steve Winan, who is Kansas State, or was Kansas State MUFON director for a long time, and his work, his profession was doing graphics and photographs. And he said, Linda, if you can send me high-res, 300, 400, 1200 DPI, whatever is the highest res you can, on Big Basin and on all the photos that you had gotten, he said, I'd like to study what is called the color fringing. And this man had given me the name, the f-stop, everything. It was a 35 millimeter camera. This was not taken by an iPhone or a cell phone.
Right.
And that when you talk about color fringing, in the old days, before the digital, there are what are called planes of focus. And depending upon whether you're in a lens that is going out to, say, a 135 millimeter lens or a longer to get a telephoto, or a 28 millimeter to get a wider, more like the eye, you will have different planes of focus in 35 millimeter cameras that go on to celluloid film. It's a whole different area than iPhones today. And what Ty Brannigan, he had given us the specs on the camera. Steve Winan understood what the specs on the camera were. Examining the big basin, he sent me a report and said, I am looking at color fringing, which is planes of focus. It is on the object in the sky, the Dragonfly drone. It is on the trees around. It is on everything. These were photos that were taken by the 35 millimeter camera. Now,
Can I jump in really quick, Linda? What I want everybody to understand what Linda is saying here, the Ty Brannigan photographs, she received in the mail. They were 35 millimeter. These are not digital. She got prints off of negatives.
Right.
So these weren't generated that way. That it's not a dot. It wasn't a printer.
CGI, it wasn't any of that.
None of that comes into play. And the photographs that she is talking about, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them in the gallery. Now, if you go to jimmychurchradio.com, when you click on the gallery, go to 1, 2, row number 3, picture number 3, picture number 4, and then all of row number 4 are Ty's photographs. These are not digital shots. These come off of a negative. These are old school 35 millimeter shots. Very important point here. Also, I just want to jump in, then I'll let you finish, Linda. And I apologize.
What happened is because they were good resolution, and I could scan them up to 1,200 dots per inch very easily.
Right.
And I and some other people began studying the tails. There were symbols under Big Basin. There were symbols under the guy named Chad. There were symbols underneath the tail taken by the guy named Rajman, I think it was 13 or 77.
In 1977, yeah.
Yeah. And as we were looking and began to try to blow up these tails and these images, it was a truck driver who was studying Earth files. He wrote the email. He says, I'm studying your site. I'm looking at those Big Basin. And he said, I just flipped one of your photographs 180 degrees on the Chad photo, and I'm hoping that you will take a look at what I am trying to interpret. And he was interpreting it as numbers and letters. And he said, when I typed in what I thought I'm seeing under this tail, Linda, look at this, it's coming up. And he had a URL that was a NASA website having to do with the moon and the lunar photographs of the Clementine mission back in the mid-'90s. And when I saw that, I started doing my own URL, taking more segments of the URL that the truck driver had gotten, doing research, and I ended up in a website at that time, that night. I did that all that night, and that was in 2007, and I came to dozens and dozens of photographs of the moon that had been taken with high resolution on the Clementine mission. But what I realized, there was nothing from the backside of the moon. Eventually, I found Clementine photos for the North Pole and the South Pole, and I began to start my own investigation. Has anybody seen all of the square inches of the backside of the moon from the Clementine mission that its goal and its promise to the American taxpayers that paid for that mission was that we would end up seeing every square inch of the moon. That did not happen. And what was the mystery? Why is it that the Dragonfly drone tail symbols that a truck driver was turning 180 degrees and trying to interpret them in numbers and letters would end up taking him and then me into many more URLs related to that Clementine mission? To this day, Jimmy, that is a mystery, but it is a fact that that is what occurred. Then you go into toward the end of June, and I end up, and Lex at Coast, also two of us in parallel, we hear from a man who called himself Isaac in the first emails. He said, I'm using the alias Isaac, and I used to work in what was called the CARET, all caps acronym CARET program in the mid-1980s. He explains that it was in Palo Alto. I was able to communicate with him privately about more details of the CARET program, learned that if you had been in Palo Alto when he was there, it would have looked like a library from the street. No one would ever know that the whole huge Department of Defense laboratories in which Isaac and others were trying to back engineer extraterrestrial technology was deep underground in the leafy green lawns of Palo Alto, California, with a library-looking building on top. That's what is known as hiding in plain sight.
Right.
And counterintelligence and the government, they are so skilled at that. So that's how he described we'll call it the context, and that the reason that he and 200 other scientists of varying backgrounds were brought together by the Defense Department was because it was in the mid-'80s, and if you all recall, that was when the San Jose computer world was really beginning to pop, and there was this almost envy by the rest of corporations and the government that entrepreneurs in San Jose and Palo Alto, in that area south of San Francisco, would be coming up with groundbreaking breakthroughs in the computer industry, moving at such a rate that they thought if we can apply that kind of individual mind that is brilliant, that is not constrained to these extraterrestrial artifacts, we might begin to make a dent on understanding what they are, what they're made of, what they do. And now the reason this man calling himself Isaac is getting in touch with Lex and me is because he recognized the language in the tale that I especially was doing reports, putting it up at Earth Files so people could see what I just discussed and start getting feedback. And it was that which Isaac said that in his years of working with this technology in the CARET lab, that what he recognized the most from Big Basin and all the photos that I was putting at Earth Files and Lex was putting at Coast was what he called the, quote, language, close quote, and I'm reading now from one of his emails, on the undersides of the Dragonfly drones seen clearly in photos by Chad and Rajman and in another form in the Big Basin photos, and he was right. The symbols underneath the tail at Chad and Rajman were similar, and the ones on Big Basin were not only on the tail, they were on boxes that were arranged around what is a far more complex machine than the previous ones.
Right.
Now, and he said, one question I can answer for sure is why they are suddenly here. These craft have probably existed in their current form for decades, and I can say for sure that the technology behind them has existed for decades before that, and Jimmy, what he is implying is these are extraterrestrial machines that have been invisible in our atmosphere for centuries.
And you know what? The crazy, to me, the crazy turn on this, as if there wasn't enough people involved. And what I mean is to develop this technology, to get it out there, to write the papers, to do the photography, to do everything that was involved with Carrot. We are talking about thousands of people. This is, and that's what it would take to do this kind of research. And everything that Isaac presented, the language and the way, not the language that's on the craft, the language that it is in his technical papers that he presented. You read all of that, and you could tell that there's a depth to this that is not your run-of-the-mill backyard hoax that somebody's going to do. This isn't the Loch Ness Monster photograph, right? This is
no, Jimmy, this is the real deal.
This is the real deal. Yes.
When you read that leaked document that he sent with the photographs of the extraterrestrial technology from the bench and some of that material, that is real. And when he explains that there are three main components to the extraterrestrial self-activating software in these ET artifacts, they break down into invisibility, the material itself, that's what self-activating software is. The material, the glassy-looking material that he shows the photographs from the lab bench, is there's no moving parts, and I am trying to comprehend this, but it has to do with holographic structure down to the molecular level. Now, in the simplest form, when we go to Disneyland and you go into a haunted house and they can now have holograms that dance on the floor and that sort of stuff. If you slice, the idea of a hologram is each particle of a hologram contains all of the material that is necessary to project the full hologram from any part in the hologram if you have the right kind of technology to project it. Now take that up another notch to what Isaac is trying to explain. These ET artifacts that they were trying to back engineer and understand in Palo Alto in the mid-1980s and Carrot, commercial application research, extraterrestrial technology. They didn't beat around the bush.
No, they didn't.
ET technology, and the goal was commercial application, and this is exactly what Lieutenant Colonel Philip J. Corso said in his book, The Day After Roswell, and I spent 2 or 3 days with Colonel Corso talking with him privately about all of his experiences with General Trudeau in the Pentagon, and the concept that they had then in 1958 was, if we can get this extraterrestrial technology into the selective, trusted hands of a few people in a few American corporations, and we can learn about it and back engineer it, and we can get it patented in the United States system, we can keep it out of the hands of our perceived enemies, and this is the bottom line kicker. Nobody in Congress, no elected official, nobody in the government will have right to that information because it will be patented private corporate. That is what Lieutenant Colonel Corso laid out in his very fine book. And then you jump to the Carrot program. They were trying to do the same thing, get this understood and back engineered so that they could do commercial application research of extraterrestrial technology and get it into the American consumer world so everybody would get used to ET technology without knowing what it was, and we would evolve and we would keep it out of the hands of Russia and China, and we'd all live happily ever after. Well, turns out, according to Carrot, this self-activating software in this self-activating technology was so extraordinarily difficult to understand that in one of his paragraphs that I've never forgotten, as he was talking about their huge efforts to try to extract, that's what they call it, getting an extraction of the extraterrestrial material out so that they could do it in human terms. And he is describing this as a complex system of symbols and geometric constructs capable of both defining the functionality of certain artifacts, that's the ET, solid, self-activating software and solid material that works in holographic ways, of certain artifacts, as well as manipulating their behavior, crudely analogous to a computer programming language, but without the need for a compilation or interpretation phase, which means without needing a computer in between, that the object itself, down to the molecular level, is the software with infinite ability and what it needs to operate completely independent of any prime intelligence, no organic life. This thing can keep going. It needs to be in a certain frequency field. And this is exactly what we've been reading about in that 460-page Project Condign on John Burroughs and Bettwater.
Yes.
Specific, in that case, non-ionizing frequency. But, Jimmy, the key to so much of this has to do with molecular structure and frequencies, and that once you have that combination, which they don't seem to have and didn't have in the Carrot Lab tremendously, they did to a certain degree, or in the Project Condign. But in addition to the self-activating software that could create invisibility, so these machines can be in the atmosphere and nobody would see them unless the frequency gets jammed.
Right.
He says the likelihood is that in 2007 our government was learning how to jam a certain frequency, and these machines that had been there for a very long time were flickering in and out of visibility, one of their self-activating software technologies. But they have two more big pieces of this. Second, projecting holographic, three-dimensional holograms that the human mind cannot tell the projected holograms from anything in the Earth environment around us. That came up in animal mutilations several times. And the third, that is so important, perhaps the most important of all, and perhaps the most frustrating to the government, the ability to neutralize gravity. And they're beginning to understand that these objects in a certain field, put in a certain relationship to other pieces, would automatically begin neutralizing gravity in certain distances, certain relationships with I-beams, and that they began to realize that why throughout the decades, when people who were fine air pilots have said, I was close, I could see it out the window, there were no rivets, there were no lines, there was nothing that showed how this big thing that looked like a lens in the sky was put together. In the Carrot document, it says that they began to understand that the self-activating software of these extraterrestrial technologies could, down to the molecular level and up, specific down to small things or huge, gravity that would neutralize gravity, and that meant that we would call them, when we would put widgets together with rivets, they're putting it together by manipulating gravity, which means it's all being done at a molecular level through neutralizing gravity, and you don't have paste, you don't have glue, you don't have nails, you don't have rivets, you don't have anything. It's all molecular, like one huge grown crystal or something. And that was, to me, in reading this material and knowing how many people that I have interviewed over the last 35 years who have encountered, whether it's a craft or a cylinder or a sphere, that's one of the things that you hear people say the most. There's nothing. I couldn't see, how was this thing put together? Then he sent a bunch of diagrams that they call the self-activating software. And I started comparing the self-activating software to what I could see underneath the big basin and the Chad symbols. And what I began to realize, I got tracing paper because this stuff, once you start working with these little, for those who may not know, I've got, 30 some reports I have done about all of this at EarthFile since 2007, and I've got all these diagrams. When you start trying to trace the little tiny differences of the symbols and doing it with tracing paper like I was, very quickly you realize that what you thought was the same symbol is not. There can be a small change in the angle, a small dot, a small, any kind of a little tiny little change. And he said, Isaac wrote, their ET technology is very different. I work with the symbols more than anything, and that what I began to realize is every tiny detail was related to every other detail. You could not move one tiny thing without affecting tremendous amounts of holographic material. And he said, word was that the extraterrestrials could design these diagrams as quickly and easily as a human programmer could write a Fortran program. It is humbling to think that even a network of supercomputers was not able, meaning what they had access to, the supercomputers, was not able to duplicate what ETs could do in their own heads.
Let me jump in really quick for the audience. If you go to the gallery, what Linda was referencing to, especially about the anti-gravity, if you go to the gallery, the last row, there's an object that is on a white board and it's photographed. That is the anti-gravity technology that was given to them at Cara to backwards engineer. And next to there's two pictures of the object. It is as crazy looking as foreign as it could be. Those two objects, and then if you look, there are these parts of the ring, and if you look, and it's the last two pictures in the bottom row of the gallery. And if you look on the inside of the ring, and look at these are great scans from Linda. If you look at the writing on the inside of the ring, the black material, you can see the software is written there. Now, if this is some I was going to say this is some kind of crazy hoax. Somebody went to great lengths. It's not.
No,
but,
it's not.
But where I'm going with this, Linda, is when I first saw these pictures and looked at it, I couldn't relate to anything that was earthbound. I couldn't relate any of it. Not only the graphics and the software that is written, but the way that it was constructed. And for somebody to say that object, the one that's sitting on the whiteboard, the anti-grav device.
Right, and it is operating in that frequency, and those two I-beams flipped immediately up at a rigid position from we'll call it the needle, that thing that has all the needles on it.
Yes.
It is resonating in a frequency, and as soon as that frequency is turned on in a very specific way with that needly object, those I-beams are programmed by that self-activating software to immediately fly into those positions that you're seeing literally suspended neutralized gravity. Now, the part that, after reading all the way through several times that document, Jimmy, this is really hard, but they began to realize that this software, extraterrestrial technology, why it has the ability to build things, those I-beams could stay in that relationship to we'll call it the needle projector.
Uh-huh.
And nothing is going to move them. You might as well look at the space between the needle projector and the I-beams as being solid, transparent plastic that's never going anywhere. That's the solidity of the gravity relationship. And they go on, and remember, he in the document that he sent, he was making the metaphor that they began to realize that if you had a broom and you cut a broom handle in 3 parts, and then you extended those 3 parts in the air, or let's call it the neutralizing gravity extraterrestrial technology was programmed to do that. Nothing is going to be able to move through, saw through, burn through what our human eyes would look like space between the cut pieces of like a broom handle that would be cut and put apart, and that they were astonished by that. And that's part of this issue, that when you're building and working with manipulating gravity, it's a whole other level that is not like us taking nails and sticking something together, and we would not have the ability to have air hold broom handles cut apart rigidly in place until something changed it. This is a completely different level of molecular construction.
And then, as if everything wasn't, so crazy at that time, to wrap our heads around this idea of self-activating software. We've got these objects in the sky that have been photographed across the country, and eyewitness testimony. Then you go and interview Ted Connors.
Yes.
And the story with Ted, not only is it interesting, but it's the book, it's Oltissus and the Ancient Greek Gods and the Lore Revisited by Frederico Ionides, published in 1962, and trying to find this book, and then people came forward and said, yes, I have this book. It's an actual book. And who was involved in the book getting confiscated and what it represented and what it said that was the craziest turn in this story of all. Now, you interviewed Ted Connors. I have the transcription of the interview, which I have read 20 times over the years. It's a mind-blowing interview. You did the interview. Who was Ted Connors? And we need to go back to Montgomery, Alabama, anyway, and Birmingham, and talk about that. But
that's right. He was working in a Homeland Security division, I guess is the safest and best way to put it, in Montgomery, Alabama, and his job was to keep infrared cameras operating in a project that they were doing in conjunction with this Homeland Security group. And one morning, he sees this thing behind a tree. It is shaped like a Dragonfly drone, and he sees it begin to move, and then he describes something that I have heard from abductees periodically over the years, where people have said they're seeing something, they don't know what it is, it can be close to them. Usually this is in where they are closer and people see it very well. And then they see what looks like a blurred image of the object, as if something projects from the object forward, and then the rest of the object catches up with what has come forward, as if time itself is distorted in front of people in some way they don't understand. And we think of Euclidean geometry, a car, a plane, whatever, a boat. It moves from point A to point B. It doesn't project Q and then pull A and B into Q. And that's where we're dealing with phenomena that can do all kinds of distortions, I think, in space and time. So he sees that, and he ends up going to talk with his boss and report that he had seen this strange thing. But as the story unfolded, he felt like that he had gotten eventually a download in his mind telepathically about some sort of a Earth-Greek connection to extraterrestrials that had been here in the past and were somehow linked to these Dragonfly drones. And because he was getting these ideas and these images in his head, sort of like a residue from these experiences, he went to a library, found a book, because he was looking for one word from whatever was coming into his head, OLTISSIS. And he finds this book, had connected with me and another person and said, look, here, I found that word finally, and he's reading something from the book to me on the phone and to this other person on the phone. And then he ends up with his boss calling him into an office meeting with somebody else from the government, and they're saying that he must give up that book and that he must stop all of this. And he's got the book out in the car, and they order him to go get the book in the car, and they turn it over to this government agent, and he says, but what am I going to do at the library? I'm supposed to turn it in. Right. And he's told in no uncertain terms not to worry about it. It will be taken care of, and just basically shut your mouth and stop all of this. And that set me and others on the investigation. Has there ever been an OLTISSIS? And some of the things that he had reported, and I began to find myself discovering things having to do with variations on that spelling in around the Mediterranean countries. And it led to a very interesting email from a man who had done research in New York City and was familiar with a book that had been written by a man named Harry Matthews called My Life in the CIA. And the book goes into Locus Solus, and Locus Solus is a publisher in France in the 1960s at least, who had done very limited editions, very odd subjects. And I get an email saying Locus Solus, Oltesis, the Ionides book, and this Matthews are all connected around the communication of CIA and spies doing code in books, that the company itself would have been an arm of Intel, in which books were being used by spies for communication. This is how unexpected all of this went, and that when you begin studying the work of this Matthews and his book, that he is saying, it sounds like almost like tongue-in-cheek, My Life in the CIA. Well, he did other amazing books about geometries, the strange timelines of life, very, very bizarre books. And it left us all beginning to wonder how deep and broad were the Dragonfly drones leading to extraterrestrial technology that our government was back engineering, and that there had been periods of time where the government discovered that the Greeks were actually extraterrestrials, and that there was a whole other department that was trying to understand what the Greek extraterrestrials had been doing in their relationship to the construction of terraforming on this planet. All of that, Jimmy, grew out of the evolution of research into the Dragonfly drone. And about 4.5 years ago, I heard from his sister, the Ted Connor sister. He suddenly died one morning in his apartment.
And there was another aspect of this story too that we just kind of glazed over really quick to get to Matthews and the book publisher, which is the two guys that were in his boss's office. I think one was NSA. Yeah. And the other guy was Homeland Security. Two different divisions. They identified themselves, showed badges. But what they wanted to know from him was Ted said it was scrolling in front of his eyes. I always thought that was pretty interesting.
Just like Peniston.
Yeah.
They had the same experience, and I have a case that I now have in Georgia from June, same thing, where people end up with symbols or binary in front of, we'll call it their mind's eye.
Right.
And that they can't get it out. In other words, humans, for the most part, think that you close your eyes and you can clean away if you have some anxiety or something, that you can control your mind.
Right.
What happens if you're in the presence of some sort of an extraterrestrial field that has the ability to implant images, symbols, and binary code, and does it with purpose and intent that this will be written down so other humans will translate it or read it or whatever the goal is, and that the ETs know how, I'm going to use the verb embed, but I don't know what's correct, but embed zeros and ones in the mental processing of Jim Peniston, of Ted Connor, of the current case I'm working on in Georgia. There have been other cases, and they can't get it out of their mind's eye. It's there, it won't go away. And in Jim Peniston's case, for example, same thing in Ted Connor. His was on a typewriter. Jim's was, felt like he was going crazy. And then I believe it was like a urge or a nudge or a word that sit down, write it in your notebook. And once he started writing the zeros and ones, they just kept going as if he were detached from his hand and the pen, and did those zeros and ones. And in the Peniston notebook, it trails off. The ink just trails off, just like his hand had been going very rapidly, and then it comes to an end and stops. How exactly that works is, I don't think, fully understood by anybody, but it's also part of what Project Condign is about. These frequencies that can it says right in there, can manipulate human minds and damage human tissues. Well, in these cases of the zeros and ones and these translations, you have sort of themes having to do with non-humans looking at Earth from a different perspective. That was Ted Connor. Jim Peniston getting the sense that black machine in Rendlesham Forest was a time machine from some place in the future where they were having a very difficult time surviving, and they were able to go back in time, gather genetic material from Earth, which implies automatically that there's a relationship between the time travelers and Earth. Some people have said, well, that proves that we get past this difficult time and we don't annihilate humanity, because if there's somebody out there 40,000 years, and even though they're running into survival problems, we make it for a while. There have been people who have interpreted it that way. But there is one other piece that I reported back at Earth Files in some time, let's see if I can find my date on this, that is so important. It was June 15th, 2007, and it was all part of the Dragonfly Drones. And my title, it was a two-part Earth Files, Star Wars physicist Edward Teller, Outer Space Menace and Remotely Piloted Vehicles. And I have a photograph of him. His hand is being shaken by President Ronald Reagan when physicist Edward Teller received the National Medal of Science in 1983. And this was an image that was taken at the Lawrence Livermore Laboratory in California. And during the Reagan administration, people heard about Star Wars. It was the Strategic Defense Initiative. And what most people don't know is that Edward Teller wrote a memorandum. It's like a memorandum of, Sir, to President Reagan, I have a warning and I have a request. And I want, in the context of the Dragonfly Drones, 1983, Star Wars head scientist, physicist Edward Teller, writing a memorandum to the President of the United States beginning, I wish to bring to your attention a very real and dangerous situation that threatens not only us, the world, but our very existence as a race. A menace greater than the nuclear arms race exists. It does not originate here on Earth, but comes from space itself. The agent of mass destruction has no reasoning psychology other than the ultimate destruction of our civilization and our way of life as we know it, close quote. And the fact that the outer space threat is not defined more in this remarkable memo from Teller to Reagan implies that President Reagan had already been briefed about the, quote, menace, close quote, which I have a lot more information about that, but just now reading directly from Teller's memo, he says, remotely piloted vehicles, RPVs, have been developed and tested with marginal success. And I think it's the technology of the Carrot program and the Dragonflies.
Yes, and there's...
Well, just hear this out, and then you
go
jump
ahead.
in here.
Yeah, sure.
The possibility of RPVs exists for the enemy as well as for us. The use of RPVs was first explored by the U.S. Air Force. It can also be applied to small space objects. An ingenious, new, circular airfoil design, that would be the ring and those wires,
yes,
is now in an experimental stage. A single wing is used in this design. That could be the tail, or something we don't fully understand.
Or the fin.
Yep. Another design is also under development. The other one uses a single wing as well, pivoting at its center at the fuselage, and the bicycler, Ty Brannigan, the whole machine was rotating in the sky with that tail, the front ring, and those air things rotating clockwise and counterclockwise. It says the wing is at right angles to the plane at takeoff and landing, but as the right wing points forward while the left points backward, any of those configurations around a new circular airfoil design, Jimmy, begins, this was sent to me by somebody who said, this is related to your reporting on the Dragonfly drones.
Well, it sounds that's exactly what he was describing there, too. That's the chilling part. But I wanted to jump back for a second, though, Linda. One of the other things that Ted Connors had talked about when it comes to Ulysses and what the two agents were questioning him about was the 23rd planet in our solar system question and what he knew about that. And what that whole...
they came from a planetary system that they called Ulysses.
Yes.
And they were describing where they came from in that system. And I remember that Ted and I were talking about none of us had ever heard of a solar system with that many planets.
And they said that they had 4 moons around it. Well, anyway, so all of this goes back to a Greek reference to Ulysses that was referenced in this book. And that gets woven into the Dragonfly drones mystery at the time. And I thought that was one of the most amazing parts of the story.
Yeah, because it all, the download into Connor's head, according to him, was when he was at the tree where the Dragonfly drone was initially.
Right.
And then over a 2-year period, the tree died, and the company wanted it cut out, and it was the morning that he went out to the tree. I guess it was after they cut it out, and he was feeling badly. And he went back to the tree trunk, specifically concentrating on the strange thing that he had seen there that had haunted him for those 2 years. And that's when he got, we'll call it the Peniston version of a download coming into his head with all of these letters forming all of these words. And the way he described it is in my Earth Files news report, that he was so stunned and shocked that he went to his office, didn't want to talk to anybody, couldn't get the material out of the front of his mind's eye, asked to leave work early because it was disorienting, went home, and he used a mechanical typewriter. He said as soon as he entered the door of his apartment, he went to his typewriter and sat down, and he said, I'm not a good writer, I'm not a fast writer, and he said it was like my fingers were taken over by something else, and I wrote all of that in one swoop.
Now, I want to read from earthfiles.com. You don't mind if I do that, do you?
No.
Okay. For the audience, Ted Connors, this is from one of Linda's reports, and I'm quoting here. Ted Connors says, those from Ultisis are downloading their life essence into the Dragonfly drone craft in order to control from afar and do the test that they need to do with these Dragonfly drone craft. And it's just it's such a telling part of this, and the connections back to the Greek, because the Greeks are not, they're writing at 400 BC, right? So
right. And
they're not.
What were those psychic connection points in Greek where a specific person who might have been a hybrid or a full-bore ET, none of us really know, would go into these very specific latitude, longitude points in Greece and download truth and images and all of that.
Yeah, and the word Ultisis, I mean, it went completely berserko viral on the net.
Yep.
And you go and you try to find it. Yes, it is mentioned in this book from 1962. It's clearly there, a book that is about the ancient Greek gods and lore revisited. And that book was published in 1962. The word is there, and it's in the index, and it refers to Greek lore. But Ted Connors, this book is so obscure, and it is difficult to find. It is out there.
No one has ever found the copy because the government agent took the book.
Right. Yeah, that Ted's copy. But other people out there do have copies of the book, and they were coming forward.
They said that they have found. I see. If there really was a copy of the book, I think I would have had one by now. People would email, here is a URL, and I would report it, hoping somebody could find the book. Mm-hmm. I reported several URLs that were sent to me, and some of it was the material that got me to Matthew, who wrote My Life in the CIA. And what was he? He was a Greek scholar. Was he probably working for the CIA? Was Locus Solus the publisher that came in a URL? Here is the publisher of the Ultisis book. I think that's probably true, Jimmy, but they did it as tiny, limited editions, and if the source is right about Matthew, the books that Locus Solus were doing were being used to communicate with a network of spies.
Let's take a quick break. You know, we haven't taken any phone calls. Let's do that, too, when we come back. Let's take a quick break, Linda. Stay right there. There is even more Truth Fall. We'll talk about that and the revelation of Mary coming forward from 1981. And that just further complicates this already just crazy, far-reaching story. It only gets better from here. This is Fade to Black, where we have Linda Moulton Howe with us. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We will be back. It is a Dragonfly Drones evening here on Fader Night on Fade to Black. More with Linda Moulton Howe when we come back.
Hi, everybody. This is Rob Halford, the Metal God.
right on jimmychurchradio.com.
KGRA Radio. Intelligent talk.
Are you a paranormal investigator, ghost hunter, or UFO skywatcher? If so, FNGinnovations.com has the product you definitely need in your investigations kit or go bag. Introducing the Morpholite Wide Beam Tactical Flashlights that put the light where you need it most. Traditional flashlights shine a focused round beam with limited line of sight in the dark. Morpholite Tactical Flashlights change all that, utilizing a revolutionary wide beam design to enable you to see safety hazards such as hanging wires and steel, pipes, and holes in the floor you just can't see with a focused round beam. In the field, where safety is paramount, a 180-degree beam increases orientation and peripheral vision in the dark. Morpholite flashlights are ideal for investigations in abandoned facilities such as houses and hospitals, factories, caves, and tunnels. Avoid those low-hanging tree branches that poke your eyes in the woods. Visit FNGinnovations.com to see a full line of tactical lights and accessories. That's FNGinnovations.com.
Now you can find all your favorite talk radio shows live, all in one place at TalkStreamLive.com. Listen from anywhere, office, home, or in your car. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com and click on one of the many live talk show hosts you want to listen to. It's free and easy. No computer? Download the smartphone apps. Never miss your favorite talk show. Find them all at TalkStreamLive.com.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why fade to black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back. This is Fade to Black. It is Fader Night, Dragonfly Drones all night long. We have very special guest, Linda Moulton Howe, in here with us. She has been researching this from the very beginning. Let's go straight to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black with Linda Moulton Howe. Who's calling?
Hello there, Jimmy.
Well, who's calling? What's your name?
Jimmy, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, this is Captain again. Hello,
Yeah.
Linda. How are you?
Who is this?
Captain.
This is Captain.
I don't know,
How are you?
Captain.
Yeah, go ahead, Captain. What's your question for Linda?
Okay, Linda, I'm a wonderful fan, and I want to tell you, I've been listening to you for the last 10 years, and I got to say that your work is outstanding. Also, I want to ask you a question concerning about the Hangar 1. What do you know about Hangar 1? And do you know that there are 38 levels below Hangar 1?
No, the Hangar 1 story I really don't know a lot about. I was told by a man who worked in Wright-Patterson in management and administration, knew about one of the craft that was delivered to Wright-Patterson for investigation, saw it himself. He says there really was a Hangar 18. But I've personally have not talked with anybody who knew about Hangar 1. I'm aware of the MUFON series, but Hangar 18 is the number that a man who worked there and knew about extraterrestrial technology, that was the number of, and he said it was a brick building.
Thank you.
Yes, that is correct. That is absolutely correct. And not only that, our government for the last 60 years have been working with the Greys. There are certain Greys that we're working with, even in Area 51. And I think that people need to really start to investigate this because of the fact that the movie Independence Day is no joke.
Thank you for the call, Captain. I got to get to some other calls. Thank you for the call.
And Jimmy, let me
Yes,
just do
ma'am.
a fast footnote to this. in August, John Burroughs and I have been doing on KGRA also a program called Phenomenon Radio, in which we're focused around various facets related to RAF Bentwaters. And one of the guests that we had on was Lynn Buchanan, who was one of the remote viewers based at Fort Meade in a Defense Intelligence Agency unit with half a dozen men, such as Pat Price and others. And Lynn Buchanan told us that he had a task to do remote viewing concerning different extraterrestrials interacting with this planet, divided into 4 categories: friendly ETs that are psychic, friendly ETs that are not psychic, unfriendly ETs that are psychic, unfriendly that are psychic, and the unfriendly psychic were considered the most dangerous. Well, now, take those 4 categories. It was the absolutely amazing interview with Lynn Buchanan about what he had remote viewed about Rendlesham and ETs, and jump to March 6th to 8th, 1981, and Ronald Reagan was given a briefing according to one of these leaked documents in the Serpo material that I've talked with several people about, and they say, as far as they know, it's legitimate. Serpo might be a mixture of that which is not factual and that which is very factual, and I think this briefing with Ronald Reagan at Camp David is. And the briefer, William Casey, was then director of the Central Intelligence Agency, and he was working with advisors and a caretaker that was, I believe, the DIA or NSA. And the subject gets down to who are they and what are they? And the caretaker says to President Reagan, quote, "Mr. President, the 5 species of extraterrestrial biological entities are called 1, EBINs, extraterrestrial biological entities, archoloids, ARCHQULOIDS, quadloids, which suggests 4 appendages, peploids, which are not defined, and trontoloids. Of those 4, the EBINs have made, through rapid cycle cloning, the big-nosed archoloids and the quadloids. They made them. The EBINs made them. Reagan is told that there are 3 extraterrestrial groups. 1 is a prime intelligence. 2, the archoloids and quadloids, were made through rapid cycle cloning by the EBINs. The hepaloids are not defined, but the trontoloids are explained to Reagan as being, quote unquote, nasty insects that they refer to as hostile alien visitors, and they are defined for President Reagan as being at least 1,000 years in advance of us technologically, and that where they come from, they have to be what we call exotic materials here, that they have the ability to manipulate time and space and do all kinds of things. Now, Lynn thinks that whatever is going on the Earth, that the unfriendlies, the psychic unfriendlies, we now have the ability, that he thinks, to chase them away. So I'm explaining this to you to say there are different types. I think Reagan was introduced when he made those 3 speeches about if the humans knew that there was going to be extraterrestrials from outer space and we were going to go to war, it would bring humans together. He did that in 3 different speeches when he was president.
That's right.
And that, according to Lynn, that we're not in a universe of roses everywhere, but that we do appear to have allies. So everybody listening tonight, humans are doing a very good job of self-destruction on the planet without worrying about anything else. And it may be, and I'm offering this in the context of all of this, from the Dragonfly drones that can go invisible to insects that may be hostile to friendly and unfriendly extraterrestrials. that it appears that we would have been annihilated so long ago if something wanted us gone. The very fact that we're here, 7.2 billion and evolving, and that we have allies. I think it's clear that there is something out there, very vested interests in us and this planet. And so, to me, there's no reason to keep all of this secret. I think the whole planet should know all of this so that we could be stronger in knowledge. And boy, if we've got friendly friendly psychic and friendly not psychic extraterrestrials, let's get on with the business of finding out who they are, meeting them, and doing trade with them, and starting to join the universe instead of hiding from it.
Yeah, certainly we would have pulled the trigger on ourselves about a dozen times already if we hadn't have had some intervention. Let's go back to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Say hi to Linda Moulton Howe. Who's calling?
Hello, Jimmy. This is Michael in the Adirondacks. Hello, Linda.
Hi, Michael.
How are you? What have you got, Michael? Real quick.
Real quick, Linda. Mention to your crew that Cindy and I are ready to come in. Okay, they're here. They know they just didn't want to approach without permission. They have our permission. Okay, would you do that for us, please?
I don't know that I know you.
Okay.
Yeah, you do. Ask John Burroughs who I am. He'll tell you.
Oh, okay. Well, are you going to communicate with me more directly some way?
I would love to. I need your permission to do that. We've gotten an incredible amount of information over the past several days. There's more coming in constantly. We have a ground crew here that is prepared to help any way they can. We're your friendlies, okay? We're just observers. So.
Well, Michael, you can...
Everybody listening, I am open to receiving information, questions, material at my news website, or it's both my news website and my email, same name. My website is earthfiles.com. I have a Facebook and Twitter, and I can always be reached on emails at earthfiles@earthfiles.com. Think of a reporter who files news about the Earth. earthfiles@earthfiles.com.
Thank you so much, Michael. And you know how to get a hold of me, too, so you can...
Jimmy, I want to apologize for last night. That was unprofessional. It won't happen again. I apologize to you and your listeners. I'm sorry.
Yeah, don't worry about it, Michael, man. You're a fader not.
I go back a long way, trust me.
Yeah, thank you, brother.
All right, have a good night.
You too. Linda, what now we've got to, before we run out of time, and it blazes by with you every single time that you're on, but we've got to get to Mary, and that is an extraordinary part of this, how it starts to tie everything together. But it's also an open lines night, and all of the Fadernauts want to talk to you too as well. Let's. I'm going to take.
Maybe we could do another show that would pick up on that particular experience, and then go on into what's been evolving more and more on symbols and binary code beyond all of this. We could do another show.
Absolutely, I would love it. I have online now your biggest fan, Dino. Dino, say hi to Linda.
Good evening, Jimmy. Good evening, Linda. I don't know if I'm the biggest fan, but I'm a big student.
Well, hi, Dino.
Hi. I walked. I did a drive-by on you at Contact in the Desert, but didn't get to talk to you much. There's so many things we could talk about. Yes, indeed, we need to have you on yet again. But for the Dragonfly subject that we were here for tonight. I saw these things back in 2008, not personally, but saw the noise on the web. And I'm just wondering, now that we see this and the information you provided tonight, what would you speculate, Linda, is the purpose of having these drones appear in broad daylight? And what is the purpose of, what are they doing? Are they craft that belong to UFOs, and a couple of the photographs look like there are UFOs in the background, or are they ours? And again, what would be the purpose of having such a strange-looking craft, even if it does fly, if it's going to be visible?
Well, you're asking very good questions, and you may have missed the part where I was quoting from Isaac, who distributed the Carrot document on the web, and it has very substantive information about his knowledge concerning the language, the symbols underneath the tails and on the boxes of the craft at Big Basin. And he recognized it as what he called the language that he had worked with in the Palo Alto lab run by the Department of Defense, where they had 200 scientists trying to back-engineer extraterrestrial technology, in which he included photographs. And when you look at the photographs and you look at the Dragonfly drones, you begin to see, scaled up to the size of the Dragonfly drones, some of the physics and structure that you see from the alleged lab photos. And he said that the reason why he thought that all of a sudden in the first week of May 2007 going through June into July, that they were flickering in and out of visibility. That's what most everybody who saw them said. They flickered in and out of visibility. He said it was because the self-activating software in the material that the Dragonfly drones are made of and the symbols that were on the tail and on the boxes would be all that these craft needed to function in 1,000 different ways, including the projection of three-dimensional holograms, invisibility, which would include invisibility in our skies, and neutralizing gravity. And that the Oltesis story, the perspective was that the Dragonfly drones were being used to monitor the Earth, and that whatever they are, they never have been manned. They have been like we would be building drones today. These would be a sophisticated kind of drone with a very specific goal for an extraterrestrial intelligence. And then the flickering in and out, as he said, would indicate that our military, our government, had come up with a frequency that could jam the extraterrestrial frequency that held the invisibility. And that whatever was going on in this, we'll call it little war of frequencies, the Dragonfly drones for a period of time were made visible, flickering in and out. The longest was Big Basin when the guy got 12 photos. The rest of the time, everybody saw them in short periods flickering in and out. And there was one man in the 90s. He contacted me. He was working for a corporation, very grounded, and he said that he had gone camping in a place in Arizona. And this may be an insight into what these things have done or been programmed to do. And he said he had set up a camp. All he wanted to do was to get away from phones and work and just be able to sleep and eat and stuff when he wanted to. And he was setting up his tent. And he said the first thing he felt was the hair. This is not a metaphor. This was literal. The hair on the back of his neck and the back of his head started to rise like he was in an electrostatic field in a thunderstorm. Mm-hmm. And it was that feeling that made him jump and look. And one of these Dragonfly drones was silently behind a branch in a tree. He didn't know that it had moved there. He didn't know how long it had been there. Something happened between it and his mind and his electrostatic field. And he said, as soon as I looked at it, I had the sense that I was being monitored. I couldn't tell if it was dangerous, but it gave me the creeps. The thing moved off, and he said, I packed up my tent and I left. Now, others who had a woman in Yosemite had the same feeling, that when she became conscious of this thing, she felt she and her children were being monitored. So it could be the way we set up phones to monitor malls and streets and banks and everything now to look for crime, that part of the drone world of extraterrestrials who don't want to bother with being in a particular planet all the time, they make their own sophisticated self-activating drones. They can make them invisible. They can be on this planet, any planet, gather any information. They're programmed to be adaptable in whatever the atmosphere and the gravity is of any given planet. And these might be machines that we would run into anywhere in the universe.
And
well, this
what
is
about
a quite thorough answer, but the second half of it is what bakes my brain 5 ways. You think about people writing code for computer software that we use every day now, but to have something that you write a symbol on a apparently solid, object surface, and that it makes it fly. I mean, that's hard to wrap your head around. How does that work?
But
again, I'm telling you guys, if you would Earth files, I have this huge archive now of about 2,600 reports. There are about 50,000 images and illustrations and everything in my huge archive from 1999 to today going forward. And I have everything I have done on the carrot, all of it, from Isaac and the photographs and everything that I did. And it includes high-res, the full documents with the photos. Every single word and page that Isaac distributed is exactly as it was in 2007 at Earth Files. I go to it on a periodic basis just to try to get another level in the onion deep.
Right.
Because the more I read it, the little bit more I understand. And it is not easy, is it, Jimmy?
No, because, Dino, you have to understand, this is alien technology. Why should we be able to understand it? Listen to this. I'm just going to read this to you. This is directly from the Carrot document. It's from Isaac. He says, first of all, you wouldn't open up their hardware to find a CPU and a data bus and some kind of memory. Their hardware appeared to be perfectly solid and consistent in terms of material from one side to the other, like a rock or a hunk of metal. But upon much closer inspection, we began to learn that it was actually one big holographic computational substrate. Each computational element, essentially individual particles, can be functioning independently, but are designed to function together in tremendously large clusters. I say it's holographic because you can divide it up into smaller chunks if you want it and still find a scaled down but complete representation of the whole system. They produce a nonlinear computational output when grouped. So, 4 elements working together is actually 4 times more powerful than 1. Wrap your head around that, Dino. And
say that 3 times fast.
And take that holographic concept down to the molecular level.
Exactly.
That means you've got that dense. Let's just say that it's similar, the way Isaac said, like solid glass, jump to Rendlesham. Jim Peniston said that 7 to 9 foot long triangle in the forest, it looked and felt like solid black glass. I'd wager money that craft in 1980 in the forest is made out of the same stuff as those extraterrestrial technologies that are in the Carrot document.
Hey, Linda, I wanted to ask you really quick. Dino, listen to this, because I looked this up when you were asking the question. Linda, these Oltesis quotes, like this one, the vessel, I'm quoting here, the vessel is an information probe that enables us to understand your environment. Our native environment is unlike yours, so we wish to learn so that we might be able to function in your environment. We are able to create a tear in what you perceive as time and space in order to travel great distances for our research. We repair the tear when we return to our own planet.
Right. And that is what has been called for years point-to-point travel by the UFO extraterrestrials, which is in contrast to on Earth, we call it Euclidean travel. We go in a straight line or fly in a straight line or go in the ocean. We move in lines going distances on this planet, which takes time per unit of speed. We're talking out in the extraterrestrial. I heard this from an engineer working at a major facility back several years ago who had been exposed to some of this, and he said, it's my understanding that we're dealing with technologies that know how to bend space and time, which is consistent with Einsteinian relativity, and that he and others have used the same metaphor for me in various places, where you think of a napkin on a table, and you take one corner of the napkin and you fold it over to the next corner. So now you've got a triangle, but you've joined together a point that was far away, however big the napkin is, from the other point. Now you've got the 2 points together. He said, the concept that we have is that we are dealing with advanced technologies that can literally, quote unquote, build a space-time door, like joining those points. They could be 7 million light years away. And the 7 million light years can somehow be bent, brought to these points, and they walk through a door, and they walk from 7 million light years to Earth.
There's no doubt about it, Linda. The last few years, Newtonian physics doesn't cut it for the 21st century. We have to deal with what you're talking about, the folding of space and time, and unfortunately we only have sometimes science fiction to go back to if we're not mathematicians, and the story of Dune talked about that, folding space and time. You know? Right,
that's right. And one of the sentences that I've never forgotten is when I read David Bohm, the physicist's book, The Implicate Order. And it is an extraordinary book. I recommend it to anybody. And one of his sentences is, all mass is frozen light. And suddenly there is something about the fundamental, I'm going to use the word simplicity in a philosophical way, that we're in a universe in which the light speed of photons is a law, and that all matter is frozen light. That in a way, all of the philosophical statements, everything we are and can see is fundamentally one thing, but we are living on a planet where everything is broken down into bits and pieces, and now on the planet, with the digital age, we are becoming disconnected from sunlight, from the air, from fresh water. We are becoming something else, a hybrid between, and maybe we have to go back to finding the power in sunlight and our relationship to this universe, because I think fundamentally, in the end, that is where the truth is.
We must start a Tesla church, a Nikola Tesla church, because that's where the truth lies. And I'll leave you with the note, if there's any thoughts on this last topic about CERN, do you think what they're doing at CERN in the next few years will awaken the mainstream to what you're talking about?
Well, I hope so. I really do, because I have interviewed a lot of those physicists, and I admire them immensely, and they always said, we're not going to do anything that is going to cause the Earth to be swallowed up in a hole or anything like that, and they obviously have been functioning a great deal, and they're learning a lot, and now there is this issue about whether or not, as they turn on and they do more and more power, are we going to be sort of pushing at the edges again of what can we do in the Earth with that kind of power, and are we going to create any kind of a downside with having CERN run? if there isn't a downside, if we keep going forward and everything the physicists say it's fine, we may end up being able to, which is now the new headline, are we going to be able to, I'm going to say document, I'm not sure what the verb should be, get data from literally another dimension.
Yes.
And that once we start getting data from another dimension, that is another way of saying science has proved there are other dimensions, and then we start getting into where the extraterrestrials and human abduction syndrome cases for decades have said some of these extraterrestrials are not from this dimension, they're from another dimension that has the ability to penetrate. Well, what does it take? We're probably back into the world of frequencies again. What does it take to be in one dimension and penetrate into this dimension? Is it that you have to force the collapse of electromagnetic fields in order to literally create a doorway from
Bingo.
one dimension to another?
Right.
And does it happen in a natural way? That's what Lieutenant Corso, we talked for hours one day in those 8 months before he died, and one of the things that he was the most interested in, of the things he had been exposed to in Washington and the Pentagon and General Trudeau and all of that, was, he said, Linda, it is my understanding there are 7 or 8 places on this planet where there are natural magnetic field collapses, and that we are dealing with intelligences from other, and I don't remember, I think he used the word other dimensions, that know how to take advantage of those natural collapsing magnetic fields to leave one dimension and come into this dimension. Well, then there have been other people who say that our government and others have been working to counter the collapse of magnetic fields that would happen in order to keep something out. Well, how complex is this?
Dino, thank you for the call.
Thank you so much, and Jimmy and Linda. Sooner rather than later, you must come back. I could stay on all night. You know, this is
absolutely.
We have to explore some of these nuances of what you've just said.
Thank you, Dino.
Good night.
Thank you, Dino. You know what's funny about CERN, Linda, is they better be careful, or Switzerland could get sucked into nothingness.
Well,
think about it for a second.
This whole incredible issue of other dimensions. If I did a show sometime on just the varying abduction transcripts having to do with what they've been exposed to, allegedly in some exotic craft with exotic beings, and getting downloads telepathically, almost always somewhere along the line comes up, your dimension and our dimension are not the same. Your time is not our time. And the one of the most compelling was Linda Porter in my third book, Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 2, High Strangeness. She had been living in Porterville, California, had started having high strangeness from being a teenager on. Absolutely amazing, complex, beautiful artist, did lots and lots of illustrations of the things she encountered in my book. And one of the things she wrote, and we also did an interview, was about how they were trying to show her and explain to her that there were so many other dimensions than this one, and that what we did not understand is that when we started tampering to make the atomic bomb in World War II, that when that atomic bomb was set off at the Trinity site in the northern end of the White Sands Proving Ground, that it tore, that was the verb, it tore into other dimensions, and that we had no conception that atomic fission would be destroying and breaking into other dimensions and causing destruction in addition to us, and that they wouldn't allow it. And I remember thinking, wow, I'm glad that there is something that has more intelligence than we do,
right,
and would put a stop to our babiness blundering around with atomic bombs, and it may be why there hasn't been a nuke on this planet. Hopefully there are friendly ETs that keep blocking, Bob Salas, that's another huge subject, or all of the things that happened in our Minuteman missile silos to so many people who saw UFOs bringing down missiles, stopping, and all of that. So maybe there is a friendly ally that keeps us from destroying ourselves and other dimensions. I would love to understand that more, and that's one of the things that CERN is trying to understand.
Well, not only that, isn't it funny how CERN keeps breaking down? Think about that for a second. We're just gonna. When I heard CERN say, we're gonna create just a little bit larger of a black hole. I'm thinking, that's not a good idea. And then all of a sudden it breaks down.
Energy,
right?
My God, the energy that is being applied there. It's just staggering, and it shows you that human minds are extremely creative, that we may be self-destructive, but I would wager that we as a species in this cosmos, there's something very special about human creativity, our curiosity, our desire to keep going beyond where we are in spite of self-destruction, and that there really is something special about the soul of the human. It may be a surprise to the ETs that set the primates in motion, but I think that the spirit and the soul of humanity is something that is being protected, and that gives me some faith in the future, in spite of every bad thing that seems to be happening now, that there will be a future, and that if Jim Peniston has communicated, let's say, with time travelers,
right,
and we make it 40,000 years from now, wow.
Well, Linda, what about, what have you found out? We had John Richards from SETI on the show last night, and talking about Kepler, KIC 689-2852.
Yeah, I'm doing, next week I'm doing the first half hour on Coast with a wonderful interview that I did with the astronomer from Penn State, who is looking at the whole issue of the megastructure from the standpoint that he wrote a protocol that if you had a star and an advanced civilization, as Kaku and Freeman Dyson and others have hypothesized about over the years. I think Freeman Dyson, going all the way back into the 60s,
yes,
said, we're in a universe that is old enough, big enough, that you could have, if you wanted to look at it this way, we have generations. Baby to 25 is one generation, 25 to 50, 50 to 75, 75 to 100. So you're going to have 4 generations simultaneously moving through their generational curves at any one time on this planet. Well, think of the same thing applied to the big cosmos.
That's right.
That you could have, 4 generations of civilizations, one coming up and out after the other, and Michio Kaku called them civilizations 2 and 3, and the definition of the most advanced would be that they would harvest energy from their sun.
Yes.
And to do that, there might be structures that are placed in situ around a sun, like for the whole length of the sun's life, that the civilization would be able then to have infinite power for anything that was needed coming directly from the sun. It's an exciting idea. Well,
here we are.
I'll boil all this down just very briefly, because I'm really going to go into this next Wednesday on the 28th on Coast, and it is this. What attracted all of this? They had the Kepler was going through these 1,000 to might have been 1,500 stars, looking for that brightening dimming that they associate with planets.
Right.
They went through, some reports say 1,500 stars, some say 1,000, but it's a lot of stars. There is only one that did not have symmetric brightening and dimming, and it's this, I call it KIC-84 for short, because there's a lot of numbers.
Yes.
And it's 1,480 light years from here, between Cygnus and somewhere out there. And that the stars, when they started getting the data through the Planet Hunter group, they would have the sun would dip in its brightness down 5%, 15%, 22%. That's
22.
Astounding.
Yes.
Go back, and it wasn't like nothing about it was symmetrical. It wasn't brightening and dimming in the smooth gradation that you would have if a planet were going around. This was very irregular and happening a lot. And the only explanation after 4 years of Kepler and lots and lots and lots of data is that there must be a lot of things, matter, mass, whatever you want to call it, between that big sun and us. And it is a mature sun. It's not a baby sun. It's a mature sun. And that if there are lots and lots and lots of these things, what could explain it? And one of the hypotheses that was presented were just a coincidental band of comets running between here and there. And
yes.
Most everybody says that just doesn't seem to add up.
Right.
And there have been other things. Right now, it is extremely unique. None of the astronomers are saying, okay, it's automatically an alien megastructure. But the hypothesis that has been there circulating from Freeman Dyson so long ago, right up to Jason Wright, who's the PhD astronomer at Penn State, and it was Jason who did a protocol, and it's a very intelligent thing to do. If you turn the Kepler telescope at stars and you're looking for planets, then you might as well do a protocol, and in his case he did it of 10 characteristics that might separate out brightening and dimming in a category that wasn't natural, that might be unnatural, and then they would reach out to SETI in California, Berkeley, if they came up with something that was unusual. Well, that's exactly what has happened.
That's what happened.
And, and so now they've reached out to Berkeley, SETI, and they have asked Green Bank, the radio telescope on the East Coast, if they can get time to turn toward that sun to get more data to see if they can either nail that it is, let's say that it was dust, and that they could prove that in the way dust absorbs frequencies of light, and they've got a plan for how they would test this. If it isn't dust, and I ask him, the Professor Wright, I asked him, I said, well, if it isn't dust, and you learn that, let's say that they finally get on Green Bank this coming summer, and they finally get more data, and it doesn't add up to be dust, and then he laughed and he said, well, if it isn't dust, I don't know. We would have a real mystery. So I find this exciting, not in a jumping off a cliff way or being hysterical, but that we are now, maybe, we are at the verge of finding a star that may have structure around it that Freeman Dyson was hypothesizing about in the 1960s would be out there somewhere.
And for me, Linda, and you're absolutely right. You know, Kepler in its field of view can see 150,000 stars at a time. And it is rapidly doing one thing, looking for those deviations. And the deviation when a planet is in orbit is about 1% deviation in light. This 22% is the only time it has ever happened.
Right.
And it is scanning thousands and thousands. And they're looking at this data, and they're so good at finding, exoplanets now and in the speed of it. But for the first time, this 20%. Now, when I was talking to John Richards yesterday from SETI, I said, excuse me, I said, so what did you do? He said, we immediately pointed all 42 radio telescopes there, and we're looking. I said, what have you found? He said, look, we're sitting on tons of data, and we're going through it. But we're going to continue to, over the next couple of weeks, we're going to continue looking at it's 689-2852. That's the number.
Yeah.
And,
you've got the number.
Yeah.
And now here's the other thing. Is there any cycle to the many, many, many pieces that are going to be dimming in an erratic and irregular way? That will it happen in the next month, 2, 3? I don't know. So far, I don't know if anybody has said that they know an exact cycle for when this interacts. It's just that they have seen it so much. What if it's circled the entire sun?
Well, this is what I said to John yesterday, and I said this on the air. What if this is how I'm looking at it. There's the sun, the star, which is 689-2852. So it's sitting out there. We're sitting here. And this inconsistent 22% diffraction is in between us and the star. What if this thing is coming towards us?
No, I don't think so, because I've tried to read through that whole
me too.
Story.
Yes.
Yeah, and the original paper, and it's the way I see it. I'm trying to understand that it is.
I don't think it's
definitely over 4 years. They've got this intermittent, and it is consistent with something that is revolving around that star between us and them, and it's 1480 light years away. And that the most important thing is that 22% dimming. They've never seen that in any place.
Ever.
That's unique by itself right there. And then they've got all these other dimmings, 15%, 10%, 7%,
Right.
5%. And this would relate, it seems to me, if I'm understanding correctly, if you say that a planetary-sized object will dim down only 1%, and you have all of these different things that are dimming 5%, 7%, 10%, 15, 22. Doesn't that say that is a whole mess of things of different sizes,
Yes.
but the sizes have to be much bigger than planets?
Yes. And there's one other thing that has been mentioned, and I talked to John about this last night. He's the lead guy. He's the lead observer at SETI. Seth is the director, but he's the guy that determines where they're pointing those 42 dishes, right? And I asked him last night, I said, now there's been mention of rectangular shape on the big object. How can they possibly determine that from this great distance? He said, look, when they're measuring the light waves on the side of this, they are able to determine shape. And I think that is telling, too, as well. If it's not round and we start to find out that this is actually, now we get out of the natural, right? We get out of the natural description, and we're going into something else here. And I think it's exciting. I think it's
and if a 22% dimming was an object that was, say 22 times the size of the Earth.
Right.
Yikes!
Yeah, that's what that 22% means. No, you're absolutely right. You need to.
And so just the concept. I mean, just try to put these words together in a sentence and absorb it.
Right.
If it's an extraterrestrial civilization advanced enough to build structures around a sun, and the structures are 22 times the size of planet Earth. My God, just the concept of being able to build like that around a star, whether it is to gain energy, I'm assuming that's what everybody's hypothesis is.
Right.
But it is mind-boggling to even try to conceive that.
You know, don't you feel? Do you get a weird feeling how the professional side of science right now is getting a little loose with their nouns and adjectives when they're saying things like alien megastructure for the first time?
Yeah.
That doesn't that feel a little bit? You've never heard it before.
I think that there is beginning to be a lift in the horrible black fog that we have lived under policies of denials and lies for so long, and it is as if a spring cold air is beginning to blow through everything. And with it, just as people are pissed off at the political systems, there are a lot of scientists, I think, that have been very pissed off at being restrained from telling the truth on things that were not considered politically acceptable, and that it's about time that instead of doing everything to be politically acceptable con games on masses of people, that we're going to finally start moving into ground where truth is actually honored again, that science will be turned back to what it should be, which is the investigation of facts as far as you can get facts and not worrying about politics. And there is something now about the comfort level of being able to talk about extraterrestrials, about hybrids, about rapid cycle cloning, about other intelligences in this universe, and that there are remote viewers who have been able to remote view for our government extraterrestrials, and now they can talk about it. And I know there's going to be a new book coming out in December or January, and the title is going to be Meeting the Hybrids. I have never, in my professional career, until just the last 2 years, have I ever felt comfortable myself simply talking about the realities of hybrids, clones, prime intelligences. And now it is as if everything can be talked about, and I think that's healthier.
We're right there. We are I can feel the energy in the air. Linda, I just brought on our producer, Les. He always says, you know Les. Say hi to Les again.
Hello.
Hi, Linda. I fancy meeting you here on another Fader night. We met last June 4th, I believe, with you and John Burroughs were on, I think.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's right. Well, also... Contact in the Desert. I think you hung out with Linda a little bit too.
Yeah.
Speaking about coming full circle, you promised you'd have her come on to do a drone thing that night.
Oh, that's right. That was with John Burroughs. Yes. Linda brought that up earlier today when we were talking on the phone.
And so tonight was really fun to go through all of this and to realize as we end up with talking about this incredibly unique star and whatever the heck it is that is in massive clumps. Can we say that?
Yes.
Massive clumps moving around it, dimming light down to as much as 22% and so forth. That Jimmy, it is sort of almost exhilarating to think that if SETI and Green Bank end up with data that falls into the category of megastructures that may be cubical or square or rectangular or so forth, it will mean that the crack, the break, the revolution that we're not alone in the universe comes to us 1,480 light years away in implication of civilizations advanced enough to do that, and we sit here in our little arm of the Milky Way galaxy, sort of like the peanut gallery, looking at something that we couldn't do, and yet we can recognize it possibly as something that has been constructed in this cosmos.
And we know that there is a reason to move forward. You know, we have a reason to. You know, the frightening thought, Linda, is that we are alone. Then we don't have a reason to progress. You know what I mean? That the frustration. It'd be like, oh, what? Who cares then? What? You know, we don't have any goals. But,
and you know what, Jimmy? On the other side of what you just said, if this were the only planet with so-called intelligent life, and we kill it, we are doing a damn good job of destroying a hell of a lot, and we ended up trashing our only spaceship, and there was nothing else, and we would end up pushing humanity and Earth life into extinction. I just can't believe that could be the fate in this universe. I think this universe supports life and evolution. And so all of this gives me a feeling of exhilaration going out to find other life, not be afraid of it.
Exactly. Linda, thank you for all that you do. And thank you for joining us and hanging out with the Fadernauts tonight. I just had an absolute and amazing evening, and so did they. Thank you so much, Linda.
Me too, and it will be fun to sit and talk in Big Bear Lake at that conference that Trevor Potter's going to have in February.
I can't wait, and we'll get to hang. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you, Linda.
All right, God bless you guys.
Please come back soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Linda frigging Moulton Howe. Les?
Yeah.
Are you okay? Are you okay,
yeah,
Les?
Dude, she has an effect on everybody. The way she speaks, she's a lot like Dolan. When she speaks, you listen. She has that hypnotizing quality, and she is a true reporter.
Yeah,
not an alternative reporter. She knows her crap. Okay.
Yep, she does. And the Dragonfly Drones saga, which goes back, she was right in the middle of it in 2007 when this was just blowing up and everywhere. And she did what a good researcher and journalist and reporter does. She goes out, she interviews the witnesses, she chases people down. People were contacting her left and right. And she knows this story, better than anybody and the details. And today I knew that I was going to do this tonight. I was like, I got to get Linda on the show. And she immediately said, hey, let's do it. Let's do it. And I was just so happy to get her on, and she could tell everything that she knows about the Dragonfly drones. And we didn't get to the chapter 4 of the story, which is this new witness that came forward, and her sightings and photographs from 1981 in Phoenix, and what happened there too as well. So there you go. What a great week on the show, Les. I'm going to have you, man. We're out of time. We did it again. Take us out of here, brother. Take us out of here.
All right. First, special thanks to Linda Moulton Howe. Wonderful night. Second, Jimmy would like to thank all the new callers and Fadernauts who phoned home tonight. Fade to Black executive producer is Rita Kamurian. Show is produced by Hilton J. Palm and Mark D. Kovar. Special thanks to LJ3, that's me, Renee Jonas, and Mark Dunbar. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Bateau, and Mark D. Kovar. Faded by Dale. Webmaster is Drew, the Geek. Music is by Doug Aldrich. Intro by Spaceboy. Visit him at spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network and syndicated on KGRA. And without further week, Jimmy and I are out of here.
Thank you so much, Les. You have a great, safe Gobekli Tepe weekend.
I will. Good night.
This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2015 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. Cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Thank you, Linda Moulton Howe. Thank you, Les. Thank you to everybody that called in. Everybody be safe. Go Bagley Tappy.